Hey everybody, it's Scott back here at Extreme Performance Trainings in Atlanta, Georgia. And in today's video, I want to look at some different back exercises that we can do with the kettlebell. Now, my first two videos, the first one focused on squatting exercises. Second video focused on some different ways to make your kettlebell press harder. So let's look at some exercises to build up the back today. Now, the more traditional kettlebell exercises like the swings, the cleans, and the snatches are all great exercises for the back, particularly the lower back and the upper back, as they work more through a hip hinge kind of action. So you're getting the lower back, like I said, a little bit of the upper back, especially with the cleans and the snatches. But you're also getting the glutes and the hamstrings, the entire posterior chain, as well as working the torso. So let's take a look at those three exercises really quick. Then I want to get into some more specific upper back and lat work that you can do with the kettlebell as well. So again, the focus of these videos is if you're stuck training at home right now and you only have access to one or two kettlebells, some things that you could do. You know, a lot of people feel like due to the lack of equipment that they lack variety in their exercise program, and that's not the case. Like I said in previous videos, if you go back and focus on the basics and work on the basics really hard, you can get a lot of mileage out of a minimal equipment approach. So like I said, the more traditional kettlebell exercises, the swing, the clean, and the snatch are all a great place to start for back training. And the nice thing about those exercises is they lend themselves to high repetition sets, so you can really get some good conditioning benefit as well. And you're going to find that things like the grip and the forearm and even the shoulder, particularly on the snatches, get some great work as well. So the swings, there's a couple different ways you can do the swing. You got a two-handed swing and a one-handed swing. We'll take a quick look at both of those variations. The two-handed swing, again, you're just going to focus on a hip hinge kind of action, working the lower back, the glutes, and the hamstrings predominantly. So you straddle the kettlebell with about a shoulder width stance. It's up to you, but somewhere around shoulder width. Grab the kettlebell with both hands, keeping the spine neutral, and you swing the kettlebell between the legs and drive the hips forward by extending the hips with the lower back glutes and hamstrings to propel the bell upward. So a couple points to notice there is when I'm swinging the kettlebell, I'm not looking up with my head. I'm letting my head follow the kettlebell down and back so that my spine stays in neutral alignment. And that's going to apply to all the other hip hinge exercises that you do with the kettlebell, including the one arm swing, the clean, and the snatch, which I want to look at now. So your one arm swing, it's just like the two-handed swing, except you're going to grab the kettlebell on the thumb side part of the handle with the handle turn back so that your thumb would be pointing back between your legs. So that as you swing, the elbow is going to be up a little bit. You're going to see a little bit of a soft elbow at the top of the movement. It's going to create a little bit of upward motion on the bell, and that's going to play into the snatches when we get into that as well. But you don't want to have your arm totally extended with the bell projecting out in front of you. So the single arm swing, grab the kettlebell on the thumb side part of the handle. And then other than that, you're doing it really similar to how you do the two-handed swing. Like I said, notice the slight bend in the elbow. It's keeping a little vertical motion on the bell, which is going to set up the snatches really well. Again, following the bell with my eyes to keep the spine in a neutral alignment on the backswing. And that's your single-handed swing variation. Now moving on to the clean. The clean is going to start out like the swing. The bell is going to pass back between the legs. As it passes between the legs, what you're going to notice is instead of swinging the bell upward like we do in the one-arm swing, I'm going to tuck that elbow as soon as the kettlebell passes the legs. And as I tuck the elbow, the kettlebell is going to roll right up into the rack position. What I'm trying to do as I do that is I'm trying to shoot my hand through the handle of the bell, almost like I'm rotating the handle of the kettlebell around the mass of the bell. So that provides a nice soft landing, and the bell won't flip up over my forearm and come smacking down on the forearm like it does if you're holding a tight grip and you're not allowing the bell to roll around the forearm. So you notice with the clean, it starts out like the swing, a little backswing here, and then as the bell passes between the legs, I'm going to tuck that elbow and rotate the handle around the bell so I catch it up here in the rack position. So I get a little closer so you can see it from a little different angle. The bell's going to go back as it comes up. Going to roll the handle around the bell, catch it in the rack position. And to drop the clean, all I'm going to do is kind of let it roll off the forearm into the backswing. So that is your kettlebell clean. Now, moving on to the snatch. The snatch is essentially a clean of the kettlebell overhead. So we're going to use that same idea that I just talked about rotating the handle around the mass of the bell. But what we're going to see is it's going to start out like the single arm swing. The bell's going to come up about chest high. We're going to see that soft elbow, which is going to create some vertical motion on the bell. Then as the bell's passing over the head, you're going to see me extend that arm, shooting that handle around the mass of the bell and catching it overhead in a soft lockout. So the snatch goes a little bit further than clean. Clean's working a little bit more of the upper back and the shoulder, but what we're going to see with the snatch, my arm's going to be fully extended overhead, and what I want you to notice is my arm's not going to be rotated out like this. It's going to be turned in so the bicep is facing the ear. That's going to keep our shoulder in a better alignment than having this big external rotation like this as we catch the bell. So again, watch as the bell passes overhead how I rotate that handle around the mass of the bell, which creates a nice soft lockout at the top of the movement. So again, it starts out like the single arm swing, and now we transition overhead to the lockout. The biceps turned in toward the ear so that the shoulder's not externally rotated. Now to drop the kettlebell, all I'm going to do is let it roll around the forearm and drop back into the backswing. Okay, so what you notice there is that as I'm lowering the bell, I'm kind of leaning back a little bit and letting the bell get out in front of me. And then as the elbow goes soft and the bell rolls around the forearm and drops into the backswing, the bell pulls me forward and I follow the bell down with my eyes into the backswing. Again, focusing on maintaining a neutral spine. And if you notice, the focus of the movement was that hinge in the hips. Now, when you hip hinge, the spine stays in a neutral alignment. There's no rounding or flexing of the spine, and you're going to feel a big load on the hamstrings and glutes. Now the knees will go soft. You're not having your knees totally locked out as you drop into that hinge. The knees kind of unlock, but you're not squatting down. And I see that quite a bit with people when they're doing kettlebell snatches, is they turn it more into a squat type of movement instead of a hip hinge. Particularly if you're trying to do these exercises for a lot of reps, that hip hinge is really what keeps the momentum of the repetitions as they transfer into each other. All right, so those are more traditional kettlebell exercises, but let's look at some things that we could do for the upper back and the lats as well. You know, we do a lot of our home-based programs. People are doing a lot of push-ups. They might be doing some kettlebell presses if they got a kettlebell, or some dumbbell presses, maybe some dumbbell floor presses or bench presses, or even a floor press or bench press with a kettlebell works as well. So we want to get some upper back movement. We want to get some row type variations going here. And there's two real ways that you can cook up the row to hit the upper back a little bit differently. One is more of that lawnmower kind of start, where you pull the weight up and the elbow is very close to the body. It's either right by the side of the body or in the upper arm is about a 45-degree angle. All right, when we do that, we're going to feel a little bit more stretch on the lat. It's going to give us a little bit more range of motion there. And we're going to feel the emphasis a little bit more into the mid-back. Another way that we can do it is to pull with the elbow out to the side so that the arm is in the upper arm is in a 90-degree angle. That's going to shift the emphasis up more to the rear delt and the upper back, maybe the rhomboids or the traps if you want to get specific with it. So easiest way to do this is if you have a bench, you can prop a hand and a knee up on the bench to stabilize the body. If you don't, all you have to do is get into a modified lunge position, and then you can rest your elbow on the knee to keep the body pretty parallel to the ground as you're doing this to create the proper mechanics of the row. So the first rowing variation, we're going to keep the elbow again by the side of the body or out to about a 45-degree angle. So pick up your kettlebell with your neutrally aligned spine. Again, I'm not going to crank my head back either. I'm going to keep my spine neutral. I'm going to pull that kettlebell up toward the upper abdomen and the lower chest. Squeezing the shoulder blade back, stretching the back down through a full range of motion. Now that second variation, I want to get my elbow way out to the side so that there's a 90-degree in the shoulder, and like I said, it's going to work the upper back and the rear delts a little bit more. So we're turning the palm down, and we're going to pull with that elbow high and out to the side. Again, working through a full range of motion, full extension at the bottom of the movement, and then as we come up, We want to really squeeze almost like we're pinching our shoulder blades together, as in more of a traditional, like a cable row or a chest supported machine row. There is another variation of a lat exercise that we can do with our kettlebell. It's an exercise that's almost been forgotten. This was a staple in the golden age of bodybuilding. We saw this a lot in Arnold's day. A lot of people, and if you ever have done the Super Squats program by Randy Strassen, pullovers are a big component of that program. And they were used back in the day, kind of the golden age of bodybuilding. They felt like it was a really big rib cage expander. In bodybuilding, especially back then, it was often desired to have a very V taper kind of build, a very thin waist, and a very wide, shoulders and lats. And they felt by doing the pullovers that it really expanded the rib cage to make the chest bigger and the torso thicker up top. The pullover is a great lat exercise as well. So if you don't have access to a lat pull down machine, or you have a hard time doing pull-ups, and you might not have a band assisted pull-up option, this is just one more option to train the lats, because when we're doing a pullover, we're actually going to take the weight and we're going to use the shoulders to lower the weight behind the head. We're going to get a big stretch down here into the armpit and the lat, and then we're going to use the reverse of that movement, the lats, to pull the arm straight up over the body. The biggest mistake is a lot of people will turn this almost into a triceps extension, and you'll see the elbows bend when you're doing it. Okay, so we want to try to keep the elbows locked. They don't have to be straight. They could. I actually prefer a slight bend in the elbow, but I don't want to have a lot of flexion and extension in the elbows as I do this. When I get the arms locked, I want to lower the weight overhead and then stretch it back over the top. Now, to do this exercise, it's preferred that you have a bench so that you can get a better range of motion, but these can be done on the floor just in the manner I'm doing them here. It's just you'll not quite have as great of a range of motion. So I'm going to demonstrate the pullover on the bench. And kettlebells really lend themselves to this exercise. A lot of times we'll see people hold a dumbbell in kind of a diamond grip, like they're doing a French press overhead with it. But with the kettlebell, you can hold the vertical part of the handle, so it makes a really easy performance of this exercise. So start out with the mass of the kettlebell on the top side of the hands, holding the vertical part of the handles, elbows bent slightly, and keep that elbow position kind of locked in as you do this exercise. Now you're going to stretch the kettlebell down and back behind the head with the shoulders, and then rotate the shoulders back up, bringing the kettlebell back up over the chest, or even all the way down to the belly if you want a bigger range of motion. And that is the kettlebell pullover. So again, some tips on that. I know it's hard to see from the side, but I'm having my elbows tucked in as much as possible. I don't want my elbows to flare out. That puts a lot of stress on the shoulder. The other thing that's going to limit your range of motion is if you feel any pain in the shoulder, all right? So when I'm holding that kettlebell by the vertical part of the handles, I'm having my elbows tucked in so that my shoulder's in a more anatomical position as it stretches back. So I'm going to be able to get a little bit better range of motion. Now I got some things going on with the shoulder. It's been kind of a bum shoulder for a lot of years now. So I do have a hard time with some of the rotation on these exercises, but by keeping my elbows tucked in, I'm able to get stretched back and feel a pretty good pull on my lat. And it gives me another way to train my lats if I don't have access to a lat machine or a pull-up bar or something like that. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video as you have with the rest of my videos in this series. If you've got any questions, just to recap really quick, 6 exercises to train the back today. We've got the more traditional kettlebell exercises, swings, cleans, and snatches. Then we had a couple variations of the one-arm row, keeping the elbow more to the side of the body or elbow out to the side of the body, hit the upper back and the rear delt a little bit more. Then we had the pullover. And don't be afraid to do some things like, before I wrap up here, like some shrugs or something like that too. You can hold your kettlebell, let that shoulder stretch down. You can work the traps a little bit, get some shrugs, or even from this position, you could do like a scap shrug as well, where you keep your arm straight and you're just retracting the shoulder blade. So that's a way to get a little bit more emphasis on the traps. So right there, we got about 7 or 8 different variations of exercises that target the entire back, from the traps, the rear delts, the rhomboids, the lats, everything, the lower back, the glutes, hamstrings even. So hopefully you see that even with a minimal access to equipment, you can really get a lot of great exercises done if you just focus on the basic movements. And again, like we talked about in the pressing video, if you need to, if the weights feel relatively light, slow down the tempo and really kind of grind through the exercises and make that lightweight feel heavy. So these are just some tips that you can implement on training your back if you've just got a kettlebell or two that you have access with while you're training at home during this time we're going through. Like always, if you've got anything that you want to see in a future video, any topics you want covered, if there's any questions that you've got, I plan on answering some questions and maybe doing a little Q&A type thing. If people got questions about some home-based training things, feel free to fire those out to me. You can either leave your comments or suggestions below these videos, wherever you see them on my social media. You can always shoot me a direct message, whatever social media. I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter. You can contact me through direct message there, or you can even email me at scott@eptsgym.com. Like I said, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Also provide any content on certain exercises that you want to see, or if there's some direction you want me to go with this. But right now I'm just focused on if we have minimal access to equipment, things like kettlebells, bands, body weight. That's what my videos are going to be focused on for the next few days, weeks, or whatever, as long as we're kind of stuck indoors and having to train from home. So again, fire those questions off to me, leave your comments, and I'll be happy to get back to those. And until next time, stay strong and stay healthy.